Come out with us and play. Love your London. Have a banana. Welcome to Love Your London and the 8th instalment on The Angel Islington. Today we'll be talking about the Grade 1 listed Finsbury Health Centre, one of the most important buildings of the past century. We'll be telling you about why Mount Pleasant is pleasant and why it wasn't always so pleasant. We'll be visiting the Postal Museum, take a ride on the MaIl rail, plus we'll chat to Stuart, a local resident and friend to the channel. But we start our episode where we finished the last one, on Exmouth Market.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Love Your London. Now, in the previous episode, we were talking a lot about Joseph Grimaldi, who, this is one of the places where he used to live. Do check that episode out. There will be a link towards the end where you can check out all our Angel episodes. But in the previous episode, if you want to go back, we talked about Joseph Grimaldi. We're still on Exmouth Market. This is a fantastic little place. It's still got a villagey feel, although it's obviously changed quite a lot. And there's some pretty cool bars here. I mean, this here, Cafe Sport Bar, Cafe Kick. Yeah, so Cafe Kick, a really good place for watching football. Unfortunately, they don't put the sound on ever in here. But what is also good is the table football in there. Now, the table football is not the plastic one that you normally tend to see in English table footballs or in American foosball tables. This is the proper continental one made of metal figurines. It's a traditional French-style table football known as babyfoot. For £1 you get 11 balls, so it's pretty reasonable, to be honest, for London. They also sell MaIl here on tap, which you don't often come across. It's too much in London. How much is a pint here of MaIl, just out of interest?
With only pints, it's like 360ml and it's £4.20.
£4.20 for 360ml. Cool, thank you. Yeah, so that's £4.20 for 3/4 of a pint of MaIl. That's actually, I guess, the going rate these days. Now, this is a place, Moro. This has been here for a while, and this is the sister bar, Morito, which is a tapas bar next door. Moro does fusion Spanish and Moroccan cuisine. The food there is really, really good. It's not cheap. The tapas bar next door is a little bit cheaper. A ración de patatas bravas there will set you back £8. But a small chorizo sausage fried a la plancha is £7. It's beyond our budget at the moment.
No beggary.
Oh, we are begging. We are begging. We are begging. It's good. It's good to do it early in the episode. We are begging. If you want to be our patron via Patreon, then we'll be able to afford to eat in places like this. But if you don't want to give us any money, at the very least, share these episodes, subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell, and also just share these videos on your social media. Comment at the bottom below, because YouTube really likes that. It shows that we're engaging with you, and I know we're engaging with you because we're getting the views, but we're not getting all the comments and stuff. Anyway, this is the Church of the Holy Redeemer over here. Now, if you go in there, you'd think that it's Catholic.
No, it's High Anglican.
I know it's High Anglican. I was going to say that. It is in the Anglo-Catholic tradition, which is why people think that it's Catholic. Contact us donations. Even the church is becoming high-tech these days. So this is Eczema Farms. Changed quite a lot over the years. Used to be a little bit more raucous in there, but it's now very gentrified. I mean, £12 for a bottle of Amundsen beer, I believe. Let me just check my notes. Yes, actually not even a bottle, a 440 millilitre can of Amundsen Virtual Reality will set you back £12. It's a strong lager, but that is still really expensive. Certainly the clientele of the 2000s wouldn't have been able to afford that. A pint of cider is £5.20, that's a bit more reasonable. But it's certainly just been gentrified beyond recognition. Yeah, I mean, I suppose some people would say that's not a bad thing. Personally, I quite like the authenticity of the old pubs, and it always breaks my heart to see them change so much. But let's carry on walking down Exmouth Market. There's a few interesting things. Obviously here you've got some food stalls.
They still go, it's not changed.
Yeah, love, oh, amazing smells. It's a real shame that you can't smell this, but this is fantastic. Lovely. But it's changed so much. I mean, this used to be an Indian restaurant. This used to be a Greek place. Used to get a really good mezze here. So we're gonna show you Pine Street now. We are going to be talking a lot more about this area when we do our Clerkenwell episodes, which is why we're not going too far down there. But we do need to show you Pine Street because it is such an important part of British architecture. Let's have a look. Okay, so we are here at the Pine Street Medical Practice, Finsbury Health Centre. One of the most important buildings in the whole country. Let's check it out. This is fantastic. Here we are, the Finsbury Health Centre.
Oh, it's still here. I thought they were going to pull this place down.
No, they would never. They can't pull this.
Oh boy,
This is.
I know it's listed.
It's not just listed. This is Grade 1 listed.
Oh boy.
This has the same
So
list.
up there with all the royal palaces.
It is. It's the same as St Paul's Cathedral. It's the same as the Palace of Westminster. There aren't very many of them. This is an amazing building. Probably one of the most important buildings to have been built in the last 100 years in the entire country. Certainly the most important building to have been built in the first half of the 20th century. It is arguably the best example of English architecture from the entire first 50 years of the 20th century. As I said, it is Grade 1 listed. The highest protection status that exists in this country. It's up there with St Paul's Cathedral, as I said, the Royal Festival Hall. Of all the listed buildings in the country, only 2.5% of these are Grade 1. So it's very, very rare. This building was made Grade 1 listed on the 29th of September 1972, on the same day as the Union Chapel, which we spoke about a few episodes ago. And since then there has not been a single Grade 1 designated in the entire borough of Islington. So that's how important this building is. This was created in 1938 by Berthold Lubetkin and Tecton, 10 years before the NHS was created. It's a very welcoming building, as you can see. It's got its arms outstretched. You can see if you look here to either side of me, these arms coming out to you. It just feels very welcoming. This was actually Lubetkin's idea. The whole design was meant to suggest a smiling person with his or her arms outstretched. Now when it arrived, its futuristic shape and its beautiful cleanliness must have seemed really alien to the local population, because Islington back then was not a trendy place full of hipsters like it is today. It was pretty run down in parts, so having this thing land on their doorstep, almost as though it was from space, must have been absolutely amazing to the locals at the time. Now unfortunately there's very little account left of their reaction because it wasn't recorded for posterity. We're going to have a little look at the amazing waiting room in a minute with the glass bricks. You see these glass bricks on the outside? This was innovative at the time to bring light into the place, and there's even some original furniture in here from 1938. Now the internal walls were meant to be movable too, something you quite see in modern constructions, but it was unheard of in 1938. Now when the war broke out the following year, the initial vision of the hospital's interior became much more centred around the immediate war needs. I actually came here for a few tests years ago, about 12, 13 years ago, and I was absolutely blown away by it. You almost wanted to look forward to being ill just to come in here because it's amazing. Funny enough, you can see a reception as soon as you go through the door. There was no reception when this was built. This is part of the groundbreaking idea that Lubetkin had. There didn't used to be a reception here. You used to go in, you used to just take a seat, and you get waitress service. And the nurses would come over to you and say, "Is everything okay, gentlemen? Is everything okay, lady, madam, rather?" And so there was no reception. This was the idea was you just sit down like you're in a club or whatever, and they'd come over and serve you. Unfortunately, there is quite a lot of disrepair to the building, largely because of the listed status. It costs quite a lot of money to make repairs. It's almost impossible to make repairs in some cases, because the NHS simply can't easily afford to maintain a Grade 1 building with limited resources. So if something does fall down, they can't just replace it with a modern alternative, which is why sometimes things remain fallen down for some time. The amazing thing to think of is, had the war not happened, the whole of London may have looked like this. I mean, this was 1938, so this was really so futuristic. But obviously, after the austerity years after World War II, things became, jerry-built, and it was very sort of, makeshift. They couldn't afford grand schemes like this, especially for stuff like health centres, which is why this is so groundbreaking. 1938. The fact this was built, so much more of London could have looked like this had it not been for the war. Actually, I do believe, I'm not sure, these could be stretchers.
Yes.
Yeah, I think these could be. I'm not sure.
Oh no, I'm not sure. These aren't quite the. Oh, these ones might be. I don't know.
I don't know. You do.
There are some.
You do get around London quite a lot of.
These are at an angle. What?
You think these are stretchers?
No, I don't think so.
They weren't stretchers. Okay.
Yeah, those weren't stretcher railings, but there are loads of these around London, just like these ones near the Oval. We'll try and point out some real examples in future episodes when we spot them.
At the moment, you're seeing on your screen a couple of chaps. On the right is Dr. Chuni Lal Katyal. He was chairman of the Public Health Committee, and on the left you'll see Harold Riley. He was the local socialist leader. Later that year, Punjab-born Dr. Chuni Lal Katyal would go on and become the mayor of Finsbury and the very first elected South Asian mayor in the United Kingdom. He came over from the Punjab region in 1929, set up a medical practice in Canning Town, and it was actually in Canning Town where he introduced Mahatma Gandhi to Charlie Chaplin. And there's a memorial to this in Canning Town. We'll be checking it out when we get to C for Canning Town, of course, so don't miss that. Do subscribe. He was those two were the brains behind this whole place being built. Let's going to have a very quick look in here. So this here is Mount Pleasant Post Office. If you've ever posted a letter in London, the name Mount Pleasant will probably ring a bell, because it will invariably say on the letterbox that the last collection is at 6 o'clock or 6:30, but if you want to come for a later collection at 7 or 7:30, you come here to Mount Pleasant. This is Mount Pleasant Post Office. You've got the sorting office just behind. Didn't used to be a post. Well, I mean, it's been a post office for a long time. Back in the day, it was something a lot more scary. It was the House of Correction, an old prison. We're going to tell you a little bit about that in a moment. In fact, I may be mistaken, but I have a feeling that you used to be able to come here on a Sunday and post a letter on a Sunday, and it would get there on a Monday. This was an ordinary Royal Mail posting box. Now we're going to just have a little look down here now. Okay, and we're talking about everything else. So did you get all that?
No, I got none of it. I was across the street. I don't know what the hell I was supposed to do.
Okay. Right, so we're going to be checking out Mount Pleasant in a moment. Got a couple of things to show you first here. Well, first of all, Mount Pleasant, what a lovely name. Can you just hear that music? Mount Pleasant. Doesn't it sound amazing? Now, you often see the name Mount Pleasant in lots of cities all over the world. What does it mean? It's actually a very early form of irony. Mount Pleasant didn't actually start off very pleasant at all. It was basically a rubbish dump. It's where all the rubbish would be thrown from the cinders of the fires, general refuse as well, and people would call them Mount Pleasant because it was funny, it was ironic. So whenever you see the name Mount Pleasant, it almost always was originally a slag heap, a rubbish dump for throwing away cinders and stuff like that. Not just cinders, in fact, we're just going to have a little look down here in a moment. You'll see there's a street called Lacehall Street. Now Lacehall, L-A-Y-S-T-A-L-L, as you can guess, actually refers to laying of the stall.
If you walk down the actual street called Mount Pleasant, which runs alongside the current sorting office building, and this nice engraving gives you a good idea of what the mount would have actually looked like, you soon arrive at Lacehall Court. Now, I should add that the word Lacehall also referred to a cattle pen where cattle was kept. Don't forget that Smithfield's market was just around the corner. They would also lay plenty of stalls of their own, of course. However, it did not take too long for that area to be used for human waste too. From the 1500s onwards, and for a good 3 centuries, gong farmers, yes, that was their title, would empty out people's cesspits and dump them right here. This is Lacehall Street itself. It does actually go on further to the other side of Rosebery Avenue, but we'll be discussing that area when we do our episodes on Clerkenwell and Farringdon, so don't forget to subscribe. And like, you know the score by now. Anyway, where was I?
So this area was named after a rubbish dump, and just down there was named after places where dung would be left. I'm sure the estate agents of today they probably leave that little bit out.
Well,
first of all,
it's not spelled the same either, is it?
no, but that's
You take stall as in...
yes. Well, these names get changed. There's a few naughty names around London. Grape Street is one of them. I can't really tell you because it's a family channel. I can't really tell you what the original name of Grape Street was. But this street here is Coldbath Square. Now, it's not really a square anymore. As you can see, it's not really a square anymore. This used to be the southwestern side of the square, and the square used to be here. Coldbath Square. Doesn't sound very nice, does it? But what this was in fact a chalybeate. We mentioned the word chalybeate in the previous episode. This is actually where people would come to have a cold bath, which was considered to be very healthy. And of course, this is all the water that was coming from the Sadler's Wells and everywhere. 20,000 gallons of chalybeate water flooded through every single day. Now this is a lovely advert that you can see on your screen now. Bathe and preserve your health. The finest medicinal spring bath in London. Strongly recommended for its invigorating and health restoring properties in all cases of nervousness and general debility. This area was very strongly related to well-being, feeling good. Funnily enough, it still is. No baths around here, but if you want to be bathed in light, this is where you come for a very innovative form of light kinetic treatment. So it's just down here on Coldbath Square. It's number 9, I believe. This whole area has completely changed. So just up here, if we go to number 9, you will see here is Tirapia Consultancy. This is where people come for wellness and feeling good. For £30, you can spend half an hour lying down to get your third eye activated using kinetic light effect called Lucia number 3.
So it's their woo merchants.
Well, are they any more woo merchants than the chalybeate bath where you go
It's not evidence-based.
Okay, they're not going to share this if we say they're woo merchants.
You can edit it out, man.
They're not going to share this anyway, are they?
No, they're not.
Okay, well, we'll keep that in there. They're woo merchants.
No, it's fine. What a beautiful tree. Third eye, my ass.
Well, apparently it's a
Luke believes that shit.
Well, apparently it's a hypnagogic experience, and it's very relaxing, and it helps with deceleration.
Okay.
I mean...
Anyway, oh look! It's a theropod. Cool.
Okay, let's go back to Mount Pleasant.
Beautiful light. Okay, cool.
Now, as I was just saying earlier, the Mount Pleasant used to be a house of correction, a very notorious place. It was a cold bath-filled prison, previously known as the Middlesex House of Correction, but it was known in the street as the Steel. And what was most notorious about it was its treadmill. Horrible idea. It was only actually abolished in, the idea of the treadmill for prisoners was only abolished in 1902 in this country. Can you believe it?
Well, hanging was only abolished in the 60s.
I know, but yes, that's true. It actually started off just as a punishment with no real purpose, but then eventually they realised that they could use the treadmill for prisoners to actually start grounding grain. But they would be there for 6 hours a day, only having a 5-minute break every 15 minutes.
Hey, it's like they worked at.
That I definitely can't say.
I know that. It's all right.
Every 15 minutes they would have a 5-minute break, and they would do 6 hours a day, every day of the week. I don't think they had a day off. So that means that they would have 18 shifts every single day. Absolutely shocking treatment. Unbelievable that sort of thing used to happen. But there you go, House of Correction. We're going to have a little look also at the museum. Let's check it out.
The Postal Museum is split into two sections on both sides of Phoenix Place to the southwest of the post office. We first went to the mail rail section, and we would like to thank Alexa Bejrova, the PR and social media officer, for arranging our access. For the sake of transparency, we did not pay for our visit. The price is normally £17 per adult, £16 if booked online via postalmuseum.org, and that entitles you to a ride on the mail rail on your first visit and unlimited access to the museum itself for a year. There are other prices and discounts on the website, and the details will also be in the description section on YouTube. Now, the mail rail was in use until 2003 to transport mail to and from Mount Pleasant sorting office across London via a network of tunnels. Now, part of the network is being used to transport museum visitors on a short but very fun 15-minute loop on these tiny trains. This is perfect for kids, but there was even room for me, and I'm over 6'2". Unfortunately, there is no wheelchair access to the tiny capsules, but they do offer an area where people with physical disabilities can view a virtual screening, which is right now available to anyone visiting the Postal Museum website. Link, again, is in the description. Now, we don't really want to spoil it too much, or you may decide not to go, so we're not going to show you the whole journey, as it's a really fun day out and we think it's worth the money. We will, however, be making the whole unedited video available to our patrons. But it's great fun. You get some cool projections on the wall which, at the time of filming, had a Christmassy element to them, and then you return to the start. I should add that if you would like to explore some of the other mail tunnels by foot, you can actually go on a guided tunnel walk on selected dates for £55 per person. After completing the loop, there is a demonstration of some of the old equipment that used to run on these tracks, such as the battery loco, built in 1927, on which engineers would travel to recover mail trains that had broken down inside the tunnel network. You see, unlike the rest of the trains, this had its own power supply, 152 battery cells to be precise, so it was not dependent on the mains electricity in the case of a power failure.
Choo-choo! I'm a mail train driver.
But let's check out the rest of the exhibition, starting with a display of the original lockers that were used by the staff until the mail rail closed its doors on the 30th of May 2003.
An old spanner, some matches, and a lighter, and an old pencil. On the last day the railway ran, on the 30th of May 2003, Ray Middlesworth and his fellow workers left things just as they were. There you go, this is their old locker. Now an exhibit, no longer used for staff. Oh, there's a nice one, look at that, it's a pneumatic car. It's from 1863, that one. A survivor from the original pneumatic railway. It actually lay hidden for a long time, they only rediscovered it in 1930, can you believe? There you go, power of pneumatics. Look at her go.
Little fan? See the little fan blowing the...
You're doing that yourself?
Yeah.
I see. In our previous episode we visited the Model Railway Club, so do check that out if you like model railways. Obviously this is just a little silly thing for the museum, but
Now what?
use the levers to move the train. To move the train from the platform to the tunnel, push the yellow lever to send and a black lever to receive. To move the train from the tunnel to the platform, push the black... Here you go.
Oh, it's doing something.
Is it doing it? It's not doing anything. Well, you've got to press this.
That's for cleaning your
Oh, it's for cleaning hands.
Man, you should have filmed that. That made me freak out.
Only one lever can be used at a time.
Stop touching.
So to begin, make sure they are all placed in the neutral positions.
Neutral. That's it. Check.
The system now checks the line ahead to make sure it is clear. If it is clear, you can then move the lever again to power the track.
You're only one at a time. Power.
As the track is powered, the train moves. The lights on the mat above show its progress.
Car depot.
Is this the original equipment that they used? I guess it is. This is stuck. I don't know. Ah, it's the sorting office. There you go. One household bubble at a time. Just the two of us.
Stafford. Oh God, something's moving. Uh-oh. You gotta get, oh, excellent. Here, all right, you do that side, I'll do this side. Is that you or is it?
Yes, me, I'm doing it.
Oh, you are, all right. Lester. All right.
Why do they move it though? I suppose it's just because
We're on the move here. This is a moving carriage. Well, you gotta get something here. I'll do it myself.
and you can do it.
Peterborough. That'll be Grantham. Alright. Well, they've got it very helpfully laid out for you here. And it'll be rugby.
Cool. What happens at the end?
I don't know.
I don't think.
Glasgow.
So this is meant to be a travelling post office.
Where is it? Hadrian's. There. Go Carlisle. That's it. Darlington.
Cool.
Not done here.
Oh, that's right. You don't have to do it all.
I'm a starter finisher here. Then Stafford. And we got Chester. Oh, we run them. Oh, no.
You don't have to do them all, darling.
I'm here. This is fun. This is a job I can actually do.
I don't think anything happens at the end. Oh, no, look, they've all come out again.
Well, that's because it's next turn.
Whoa. Whoa.
Those are real leather, too. Those are nice.
They're original. I suppose they're original.
I don't know, but
They're heavy though, aren't they?
yeah, of course.
And so across the road you have the Postal Museum itself, a fantastic building with a nice little chill-out area outside where they have this cool old phone box which also doubled up as a letterbox and a stamp dispensary. How cool is that? You can have a look at this without paying for the museum, so do check it out if you're in the area. Okay, so you enter via the gift shop in A Break with Tradition, where you can buy all sorts of goodies from tea towels showing the various pillar box designs through the ages to bottles of Postman's Knock, which is a form of stout supposedly favoured by the post delivery workers. Might explain why we keep getting our neighbours' mail. Now, again, as with the MaIl, we are not going to show you the whole museum because we want to encourage you to visit it for yourself. Our patrons, however, will be getting the whole 26-minute unedited tour of this part of the museum, so if you do want to become a patron, you know what you have to do. So we're just going to show you now some of the highlights, such as this, the very first commercial Christmas card dated 1843. Civil servant and inventor Henry Cole had the card designed to save himself time writing seasonal letters, commissioning Isambard Kingdom Brunel's brother-in-law, John Calcott Horsley, to paint the artwork. I love the fact that everyone is drinking red wine, including the babe in arms. There is also a sheet of penny blacks and the original printing plate. There's a beautiful green ornate Victorian pillar box from 1857 to 1859, designed by Richard Redgrave, and a 300-year-old item of post, and an old mail coach.
Wonder how many of them were held up by highwaymen going through Hampstead Heath.
There really is so much to see here. More pillar boxes, an original Gower-Bell loud-speaking telephone. You can have a go on some pneumatic tubes.
I don't know.
It'll be at the other side.
Yeah, the old rotary phones. I remember them. Yeah, so back in the old days, if you had something that needed to go via airmail, it would be blue. Look at that. And there's daily, AM, Algeria, Morocco, Tunis, France, Italy and Switzerland, and 745 collections for Belgium, Czechoslovakia, Danzig, that's modern day Gdansk, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, Germany, Holland, Lithuania, Norway, Poland, Russia and Sweden. And at 11 o'clock, Danzig, France, Germany, Holland, Greece, Latvia and Lithuania again. Interesting. So and then you had different collections, there you go, so at 6:45 p.m, Canada. If you wanted to send something to Zanzibar, that was 11 a.m. Oh, it was so confusing, wasn't it? Palestine at 11 a.m.
That was worth the admission alone, I thought. I had no idea that in the old days you had to post items at different times depending on the country you were sending it to. Lovely 1935 Morris Minor postal delivery van here. And there is a very rare Edward VIII pillar box. Rare because he wasn't king for very long. He abdicated before he even got crowned. There really is so much to see at this museum. We're only showing you the tip of the iceberg here. There's a few interactive things to do, such as this fun thing where you can design your own stamp and email it to yourself. There's a screen that you can dance in front of. An original post bus from the 1980s. One of the original post boxes that were painted gold in the hometown of any athlete who won a gold medal for Great Britain at the 2012 Olympics and Paralympics. This one came from Hebden in honour of rower Andrew Triggs Hodge. There's also an exhibition of postcards, including a number of saucy ones that were censored in the olden days and which no one would bat an eyelid at these days, and also an example of the very first British postcard from the 1st of October 1870. There's some photos of post office cats, including the most famous, Tibbs the Great, who even got an obituary in the Post Office magazine in 1966.
I absolutely have to say,
Oh, sure.
very happy with that.
Right, now what? Oh, we go up, oh, this is it.
Now let's go to the pub.
Now we go to the pub. It's beer o'clock. Very nice.
Thank you.
Indeed, thank you. Thanks a lot. All right.
Oh, wasn't that fun?
It was fun.
I enjoyed that. Really enjoyed that. That was really fun. Yeah, do come here. It's
Yeah, sure.
it's really good. Yeah.
The trap open here. It looks comfortable.
Cool. I'm here with a friend of the channel, Stuart Cameron,
Good evening, afternoon.
at Sturovision on YouTube. He recorded the footage of Sibel Tuzun that you saw in our Eurovision special. Now do check that out.
Yeah, thanks.
That was really fun. He was wearing a big sort of cherry blossom helmet. And you live around here as well. So I don't know if you want to say. What's it like living around here? I mean, we used to live around here a while ago, but you've lived here many years.
Yeah, well, apparently I haven't really. When it's 30 years next year that I moved in, and I remember one of the first things that happened was the chairwoman of the local residents association paid me a courtesy visit to welcome me to the area. And I remember her saying that she'd lived here for 30 years at that point, and she was considered a newcomer by the more traditional inhabitants of the area. So it's a very place where people kind of settle. Yeah. I think it's a fantastic area, and in my short 30 years I've seen quite a number of transformations, like where we are here on Exmouth Market. When I first came here, it was definitely not the place it is now, where people come for brunches, cocktails, all sorts of fancy meals, and there's a few jewellery shops as well. It was the kind of tail end of the Farringdon reputation of book stalls, so barrows or wallpaper paste tables with lots of second-hand books laid out on them. We had a Army and Navy store where I always remember, I still have it.
That, yeah.
I got my 50p Chanel t-shirt, which I'll never let go of. It's a real bargain. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy the transformations that I've seen over the years as well. It's definitely become a destination area, so I don't shy away from that, and it's fun. I'm spoiled for choice, particularly during the pandemic when travelling has not been so much of an option. As soon as the hospitality started to reopen, this was just like making a beeline for this area every day, and having the outdoor catering on the pavements has just been an absolute treat. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things come back to life. Another thing I enjoy here is, like, since the town hall, Finsbury Town Hall, was taken over by the Urdang Dance Academy, that's kind of like, you sometimes get these scenes from Kids from Fame where the students burst into spontaneous musical numbers just going down the street, or having their lunch in the park. They'll be doing rehearsals or practice, and so there's kind of all this free entertainment when you're sitting having a sandwich on a park bench.
It's great. And you follow the channel. I've been
following the channel from the start.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Very informative, particularly if it's an area that I'm already familiar with. I do like to see your take on how you pull out the history and the connections to things that I'm familiar with, and also if it's something that I'm not familiar with, then it's an education, so all for it.
Yeah, so do check out, if you're new to the channel, if this is the first video you're watching, we've done Acton, we've done Alperton, we've done Alexandra Palace. We're going to be doing, we've got about another 4 episodes left, or 3 episodes left of Angel, and then we'll be moving to Balham and Tooting is going to be our next area. Do you know Balham at all?
I don't at all. This is going to be part of my journey of exploration in South London. I've lived in West London, East London, North London and Central London, but never South.
Never South. That's Balham. I lived there for a very, very short period in about 1994, and then moved here, funnily enough, to Percival Street, and then came back to Percival Street a few years later. So this has been an area where I've lived around here twice. But Yes, as you say, Exmouth Market has changed a lot over the years. Some of it's for the better, but most of it, I'm quite a nostalgic person, so I miss the spitting sawdust feel that, for example, the Exmouth Farms.
Absolutely, it was definitely one of the last bastions of the old style bars around here when everything else was gentrified. This one stood strong for the longest, and I certainly was the one who would frequent. This is the one I'd frequent the most regularly for that very reason.
Great.
Well, that was a long one, wasn't it? Next time on Love Your London, we explore Chapel Market, where we get to see some coffee being roasted inside a laundrette that features in the very first episode of Only Fools and Horses. Plus, we take a stroll around Culpeper Community Gardens and tell you a little bit about who Nicholas Culpeper was. Till next time. From Acton Town to Wimbledon, from Brixton to Beyond, love your London, have a banana.